Ryan Williams, I'm a Gen-Tec Nutrition athlete. I'm an elite powerlifter in the under 125 kilo weight class. I compete in the GPC Powerlifting Federation in Australia and also Pro Raw in under 125 kilos. I started powerlifting like most people, wanted to be strong, and I was training generally for strength. I actually started in a shed in Kimberley in Western Australia where I was posted for work. After moving to Darwin, I joined Darwin Power Sports and started doing some of the smaller competitions around Darwin, and moved back to Queensland and realised there was nothing in Townsville where I'm living at the moment. So I was travelling to Brisbane and Melbourne and Sydney to do most of my competitions, and realised that there's a whole world of powerlifting out there that's sort of evolving from, I think, formerly powerlifting was mainly done with equipment like squat suits, bench press shirts, deadlift suits and things like that. It's now evolving into more of a raw powerlifting with just wearing a belt, knee wraps and wrist wraps. And I think a lot of that is to do with CrossFit, and I think everyone's been exposed to CrossFit like I have, and you do a little bit of that and you get exposed to using the barbell, Olympic lifts, the general conditioning, and then I think people start deadlifting, squatting, bench pressing, and I realised I was reasonably good at it, and I just went from there. And from local competitions, I did my first national competition in 2015. Back then I was in the under 110 kilo weight class, probably placed around 5th or 6th in Australia in that weight class in my first nationals, and realised that after doing Pro Raw 7 actually here in Melbourne, that the under 110 kilo weight class was a little bit small for me. So I moved up to the under 125 kilo weight class and suddenly became quite successful. I qualified second in 2016 for Nationals. I finished second at Nationals, and then moved on to the 2017 Pro Raw 9. I won. That was actually coming back after a serious back injury. I herniated a disc and managed to rehab that in a fairly short time, and then went on to win the 2017 GPC Powerlifting National Championships, and also broke the all-time Australian total record, along with a couple of GPC Powerlifting world records. Unofficial, because I didn't actually know I did them until afterwards. And then we just kept going from there. So I've won most of the regional comps that I've done in recent years, Mackay, Townsville, and I won Nationals on Sunday. So again in the under 125 kilo weight class. And also sort of re-broke my own record. I was actually aiming to total 1,000 kilos, which has never been done before at this weight class. And it's rarely been done actually in the world, but just missed a couple of lifts and come up with a 970 kilo total to break my own all-time record by 5 kilos. Last year in 2017, unbeknownst to me, I broke the world squat record. And I was only told afterwards, so I couldn't claim that title because I had no idea. I didn't tell anybody, and I didn't get my gear checked. And then when I broke the all-time Australian total record by 15 kilos, it also broke the GPC total record by about 20, maybe 18 kilos. I'm not too sure. And then I didn't know that until afterwards as well. So I was more focused just on the all-time Australian record, and I think generally for like a high-level powerlifter, or most, I think in most sports, the all-time records, whether it be international or national or state record, is a bit more important than a federation record. I actually said to myself, and I said to the guy handling me on Sunday that would focus on that, but once again, I just got so caught up in the competition and broke the records again and forgot about them. But I was focused again on breaking that all-time Australian record, which I did. I fell short of 1,000, but I still managed to put an extra 5 kilos on that record. So the nearest competitor is actually Wayne Howlett, who's a legend in the sport, and his total is 950, and now mine's 970. And I really do enjoy the squat. So I think it's the one that I enjoy doing the most. It's the one I think that requires the most amount of skill and strength and balance and stability. I mean, I think with all powerlifters, it changes. Sometimes it's a bench, sometimes it's a deadlift, Last year the deadlift was feeling amazing. This year my deadlift I think is sort of regressed technique-wise, but I'm addressing that, and I'm sure that yeah, I'll put a decent total together once that deadlift comes up a few kilos. I think the one that's progressing the most is generally the favourite. I believe, yeah, I used to say it was a bench press, but yeah, I think that's stalled out for a couple of years, and I think that happens at a high level, especially when you're squatting very, very heavy. You're putting 400 kilos on your back, and I think it definitely fatigues the upper body. So the bench press at the moment isn't, you know, in training it's my friend, but in competition it's sort of stalled for a couple of years. But I know that I've always got an extra 225 around about kilos on my total with the bench press. As a kid, I was a gymnast, and I basically grew too big for the sport. I played lots of other sports, netball, basketball, AFL, so I originally grew up in Adelaide. And I sort of got bored of those sports and went off and did things like motocross and skateboarding and lots of different things. But yeah, I was training for strength and size, and just a normal bro in your average, you know, 24/7 gym. I then said to myself, I've got a goal in mind, which is you know, a couple of strength goals, and it had a lot to do with the 3 big lifts. I started training predominantly for strength and cut away a lot of the extra volume and a lot of the stuff that you know, is related to that hypertrophy training, and I put some decent lifts together in the gym and thought, well, these sort of strength goals, especially around the 3 lifts and the peripheral lifts like the overhead press and things like that, they really interested me, and it's something I sort of became addicted to it. And then when I moved to Darwin and started at a powerlifting gym, I realised that the strength level was quite good, but my technique needed a lot of work, and thanks to some of the guys at Darwin Power Sports, we sort of tidied a few of those things up and did a few competitions. The ego got a bit of a knock, because obviously within competition there's 3 judges and 3 referees, and you've got to, you know, meet certain criteria, and it's sometimes very specific. And I thought that I was at a certain level, but I realised within competition I wasn't at that level, and that just got me, just lit a fire under my, you know, just really lit that fire in my belly, and I just wanted to get better. And that would have been maybe 2013. I did my first powerlifting competition, and yeah, I realised that this is something I really wanted to do, because I hadn't competed in sports since teenage years. I was probably 35 when I did my first competition, around about there. You know, strength and muscle size takes years to build. I was lucky that you know, as a bro in the gym, I built a decent base, and then when I sort of honed in on the technique, once I'd joined a, you know, powerlifting federation and joined a powerlifting gym and enhanced the skill side of it, I realised that it's much harder for the younger athlete to put up these bigger numbers if they don't have the muscle base. And I definitely think a lot of the athletes in our sport neglect the bodybuilding side of powerlifting. You know, people, you know, they might have a different idea, but the way we train, it's 90% bodybuilding, really. You know, once you've got the skill and once you've got that reasonable amount of strength, you've got to, like bodybuilding, you've got to find your weak points and you've got to bring them up. And whether that's through skill or muscle size or what have you, yeah, I definitely think that bodybuilding and powerlifting, they go hand in hand. Day to day, you've got to work. You know, you've got other activities, other hobbies, you know, other stresses in life. So obviously, sleep is number 1. Nutrition maybe number 2, and I think then active recovery, getting the blood flowing and getting the body moving and moving in a healthy way. That's basically how I recover. I do have manual therapy. I have a lot of myofascial work, chiro, physio, you know, dry needling, you know, ART. I get that weekly, but walking, contrast bathing when the inflammation is high, but being active. And I have a desk job now. It definitely makes it easier to recover because I'm in the air conditioning, because I live up north, and I've got all my meals and my water and everything around me. But sitting is obviously, it's toxic, and getting up and moving regularly. And on the off days from powerlifting, we're always walking, we're always moving, swimming. Yeah, just being active and getting the blood flowing and removing the toxins from the muscles. I think laying down and resting, it feels good, but it's not the best way to recover. Well, Gen-Tec, as a gym bro and a guy that just went to the gym and needed some extra nutritional supplements. I'm a South Aussie born and bred, and like Gen-Tec, like Nick, and I used to save up all my money when I was a real young guy and buy those Gen-Tec products, and I learned a lot of my prehab and mobility and a lot of the technique for bodybuilding from Nick's videos. Back in the day, he put out quite a few videos, and I really respect Nick and the way he did, just him as a guy. Love the products. I mean, if you look at the ingredients and you look at the sponsored athletes, it's a great team and a great family. And I met Nick once in Townsville. He came up to do a seminar, and he actually came for a bit of a train at our gym, and I could hear this guy yelling and egging me on to do a big squat, or I think. And I turned around and I said, "Oh, Nick Jones," and we got introduced through a mutual friend, and we spoke for a while and sort of really got on quite well, and I thought he was a great guy. Like I said, great products. We caught up at the Arnold's at Pro Rule 9, so it would have been in 2017, and I actually said to Nick, if I podium, Nick, I'm going to ask you the hard question to join the team, and I said, but if I win, I said I'm going to put it on you. And basically, I came back the next day with the winner's trophy, which is a steel trophy about this big, and I shoved it in Nick's hands and said, well, how about it? And we worked something out, and I joined the team.